العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إلهنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين. قال الله الحكيم في القرآن الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن التقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين. Thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that help us to finish one more day of the holy month of Ramadan. 1/3 of Ramadan is gone, and inshallah we're getting closer to the Layali al-Qadr, to the night of Qadr. And may Allah give us the tawfiq to experience and take advantage of the night of Qadr, the night of power and destiny, inshallah, with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wa ali Muhammad. If it was before iftar, I would say it was because you were fasting that your energy is so low, but right now, alhamdulillah, you had a good iftar, so another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is the surah, I'll put it up there for you to see. This is the surah number 95 of the Holy Quran, and is a Makki surah. We inshallah finish this surah tonight, and from tomorrow night we will start a new chapter. We talked about the first few verses of this surah, which according to tafsir, it was about two important fruit and as well as the location that they grow. What tini was zaytun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, by the fig and the olive, by Mount Sinai and by the secure town Mecca, that we certainly created man in the best of stature and forms, and then we relegated and we returned him to the lowest of the low. But as we talked about, this lowest of the low refers to the man's action, that humanity is capable of going either toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or distance himself from Allah. And in dua iftitah, we have a beautiful statement that we say, Ya Allah, you're the one that وَتَتَوَدَّدُ إِلَيَّ فَأَتَبَغَضُ إِلَيْكَ. You show kindness to me and I show hatred toward you. And another one is that you come toward me and I turn away from you. This is one of the nature of the man, that usually we become rebellious when everything is going well. And this going lowest of the low refers to the humanity turning against God or ignoring the purpose of their creation. But in the next ayah, verse number 6, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, not everybody will go to the lowest of the low. There are people who will be able to know their worth and value, and they will be able to reach the opposite. So asfala safilin, what is the opposite of lowest of low? A'la illiyin. So if you want to antonym, there's asfala safilin, the lowest of low, and a'la illiyin is highest of the high. So basically we're talking about a graph that we can either go toward Allah or distance from Allah. And every action we take and every word that we say and every niyyah and intention that we have is taking us closer toward Allah, highest of the high, a'la illiyin, or asfala safilin. So then Allah said, who is the one that will not go toward the lowest of the low? Who are the people that they will not downgrade themselves? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except those who have faith and righteous deeds. If you have iman and righteous deeds, you will go highest of the high. فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. Then for these people, we will having everlasting reward. Ajr is the reward, is the basically the sometimes we consider ajr for somebody who work, and at the end of the day when they want their paycheck, they want their compensation. That's what the ajr is. So Allah said, if you have iman and you have amal as-salih, you have righteous deeds, such a person, ajrun, there will be a type of reward, it will be a type of compensation is غير ممنون. There will be no ending, there will be no way of measurement. So everlasting form of reward for those people. فَمَا يُكَذِّبُكَ بَعْدٌ بِالدِّينِ. So after all this been said about the creation of human being, that they were created in the best of forms, and about either going toward Allah or distancing from Allah, فَمَا يُكَذِّبُكَ بَعْدُ بِالدِّينِ. What makes you, O human being, to deny the retribution? يوم الدين بعد بالدين. You remember it's Malik يوم الدين. So deen here refers to the day of judgment. We're talking about the accountability of the man after death. So Allah said, after all this been said, what is the major reason and what is your excuse that you do takdhib? Takdhib is when you call something to be a lie, is denying something. What is the reason that you considered Yawm ad-Din, the day of retribution, the day of judgment, to be a lie? So this is a question that humanity asks us to go back to our conscience and ask ourselves, what's the reason that I don't believe in the day of judgment? If people said there is no proof for a day of judgment, the answer is there is no proof for not having a day of judgment either. So the maximum that could be said is that there is no proof to prove it or to disprove it. That's the maximum thing that any person, even the best atheist, that they can say. There is no proofs for existence or not existence of it. But of course, when you look at the prophets of God, we say they are the proof, right? When you look at the nature of humanity, that they were thirsty for justice, for idalat all the time, and we don't get that satisfaction in this dunya. That's what we see, that this is something more than just this life. It should be something, because if we are striving for something more than the limitation of this life, it shows that we are expecting something more than this life. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ. Is not Allah the fairest of all judges? Hakimin is the word hakim is being used for ruler, right? When it comes to the one who basically have the authority over people. Judge is being hakamiyat, is the judgment. Is when humanity have this authority to make the judgment, who is the guilty and who is not guilty. So Allah is asking, who is the fairest of all the rulers and judges except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How many times you've been reading in the news just in the last few weeks that somebody innocent been incarcerated for more than 32 years? This is a humanity doing their best, using all the evidence, eyewitnesses, different form of, police investigation. And we see at the end, one of them was actually in Simi Valley, right? The person who got a multi-million-dollar compensation for the innocent incarceration. It was all over the news in the United States, and Simi Valley once again was, on the news because of this. So it's not one or two examples. That humanity do their best to make the best of judgment, but when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah said, أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ, isn't Allah the first of all judges? That when it comes to the day of judgment, that is the type of justice that not the human beings do, that you're worried about to be tortured for no reason, to Allah, have that sense of, forgiving some people because He likes so and not forgiving other people, discrimination, prejudice. Allah is Ahkam al-Hakimin. That's what you have to keep in mind. So one lesson, because tomorrow is the 10th of Ramadan. And the 10th of Ramadan is anniversary of the death of al-Mu'mineen, the mother of the believers, Hazrat Khadija salamullah alayha. For the honor of Hazrat Khadija and all of the noble women of the human history and Islam, recite a salawat. This is a good application, that when we talk about those who go to lowest of the low and those who achieve highest of the status that they could achieve, Hazrat Khadija is a great example. Because when it comes to this statement, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except those who have faith and do righteous deeds, she is a perfect example to look at. It is important when you look at Quran uses a lot of examples, a lot of stories. And I want you to know one thing, that uh, although that it is important to preach, it is important to talk, it is important to write, and ultimately talk about the good and condemn the evil, for example. But the reality is that the best way that we can learn, the best way that we usually get influenced and affected, that what we say, we see that sense of change in people, is when people see what we're preaching in action. And Quran is an example. Allah said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That if you want somebody to look up to, because we want, that's the reason celebrities are famous, that's the reason their posters are being sold, that's the reason everybody wants to be like them. Because you can talk about hard work, you can talk about dedication, you can talk about achievements, but when we talk about actual people who did it, the amount of change that it makes to our mind and life is very different. And Allah knows that very well. That's the reason Allah in Quran uses qasas or qisas, stories. Because we need the stories. We either need a live example, that's the best of the best, that when you actually see something good. When we see it, it changes us. When it comes to visual impact, compare with audio, and when it comes to what we hear, the visual impact is greater than anything. And this is based on the studies and all that. That is one of the best way we learn. And when it comes to even to good stuff that we're talking about, the principles of our aqidah, our belief, we talk about akhlaq, we talk about ethic, we need to see something. So when you are asking me, one of the questions a few nights ago was, what should I do about my children if they're not behaving well? One question I have to ask myself is what they are watching and observing. In a family relationship, in the interaction between me and my other people, not necessarily just the family, that's the best. They look how I interact with my husband, how I interact with my in-laws, how I interact with my neighbor, with anyone that children can see. That is the most important part. Then is, tell your child, do this and that. Usually I don't say that to, give advice to children. That's the reason a lot of children, a lot of, let's say, teenagers, one of the most disliked thing for them is what? Nasihat. Giving them advice, sit down, give them a talk. They don't like it. What they care about is watching. That's the reason a lot of our teenagers watch a lot of stuff. Even adults watch a lot of stuff too. And Instagram and all these other platforms mesmerized people, literally mesmerized. That hours and hours, all of us, we are just amazed by what's going on, is because the story is being told. That's the reason, what is one of the part of Instagram? Instagram what? Instagram stories, right? That there are people loyally producing that story and a lot of people consuming that story. And same thing applies to other platforms that we have. It is very important to keep that in mind, that we need to set an example for others and also look for example in other people's life as well. And Allah said, if you want the one that is ideal, look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because when you watch, or at least imagine the life of Prophet, when you imagine his life, you read that the Prophet was like this and like this and like this. The way you can appeal to that and actually make your life based on that is much easier. Compare with saying that, be kind, be generous. Let's talk 30 minutes about the importance of Saleh Rahim. But when I give you a story that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, although he was an Imam, he would go all the way outside the city of Medina to see his brother, to do Saleh Rahim with his brother. And he's an Imam, and he would do that for Saleh Rahim. That has to leave a different trademark and a different impact. Compare with saying, just do Saleh Rahim, connect with your relative. And I say that to go back to when they say, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, Iman and Amal Salih, how we want to see faith and righteous deed in the life of ourselves, look at personalities who did it. Imagine the life of those individuals. Specifically because tomorrow is the 10th of Ramadan, Hazrat Khadija, Salamullah alayha. A woman who was rich, a businesswoman, a woman who dedicated her life for her faith and dedicated her life for good deeds. She was one of the richest women, richest people in Mecca. And by the time that she passed away, she gave everything away for the sake of Allah. When they were under a boycott in Shi'ba Abi Talib, in the valley of Abi Talib, that the idol worshippers said, we're not going to sell anything to Muslim, we're not going to do business with them, let's just economically sanction them, put pressure on them until they give up on their faith. Hazrat Khadija was the one, by the help of Abu Talib alayhi salam, the father of Imam Ali. These two were the hands of Prophet. And when both of them passed away, Rasulullah, we have tradition that he said that their loss was a great, great pressure on the Prophet and a great loss for the Prophet himself. Because they were the one who's supporting the Prophet and Islam when it was needed. And she gave away all she had. This is an example. She's a woman who's a smart, intelligent, as I said, making money, but when it's needed, investing the money for the saving of something that is more important. And when she passed away, it was not even enough money to buy a kafan, to buy a shroud to cover her around. This is the amount of sacrifice that a human being can make, regardless of gender. This is a woman that all her life dedicated herself to her family, dedicated herself to her husband, dedicated herself to her creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And understand that after her loss, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam have to experience the pressure of losing a backbone, somebody who supported him all his life. And now Rasulullah is the one who has to raise a child, Hazrat Fatima, an orphan, a young girl by himself. And that's a lesson for us. You know, there's a life that we have loss of family members, we have loss of loved ones, but life continues. And how to stand up after calamities, how to restart our lives after tribulations. We can look at the life of Hazrat Khadija and the Prophet and people that we consider them to be awliya Allah, the companions of God, to have a good example that they were people and they lived this life. So it is possible for me to follow that path. So every time you see إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, then Allah said, فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. Although Hazrat Khadija died maybe not with a fancy kafan and a fancy qabr and grave, but her name will stay forever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will compensate for all her sacrifice everlasting, no ending for it. Because He is the fairest of all judges. When I say fairest of all judges, it is important that when you say, oh, I do something for my mom, Mother's Day was around the corner, Allah is the fairest judges, to learn that from Allah, to be fair. That how much your mom and your dad and people around you did for you, and what that gift that you bought for them will compensate for. Be fair. How much that could pay, be a good payback. I promise you, it will not be much. It will not be much, to be fair. Because they literally, sacrifice their own existence. Imagine a mom that in pregnancy that she has to give from her own nutrition to the child. From her own existence, that child is getting nourished. And now we think with buying a simple gift, we can be, equally trade off. And now we're set. No, of course not. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ. Inshallah, if I want to summarize the lesson from Surah Tin, is the importance of sacred location, right? That we talk about in the first night. That we talk about Palestine, we talk about Mecca, we talk about Sinai. There are sacred locations because of the sacred people in those. To be respectful. Wahhabism and that idea, try to undermine that. But just understand, Kaaba is a building. It's 4 wall. There's nothing inside that. God is not sitting there. But there are prophets of God buried around that area, built by the hand of prophets of God. It's a sacred land. It's a sacred house. And we go and we literally have to circumvent around it, right? Remember, if you said is worshiping idols, you go around a building in tawaf, but you know Allah is not there. This is a symbol that Allah said you have to do tawaf and you have to circumvent around it. Same thing applies to Masjid al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Same thing applies to Ziyaratul Salihin, when we visit Salihin, the righteous people. That Ahlul Bayt are an example of that. So that's one lesson. Sacred places that Allah swear by them. Use them as significance. And then the second lesson is the creation of man, that we think about how balanced our body and our soul is. That if it was not created in the best of form, imagine if we had any part of the symmetry of this body. We have one mouth, if instead of one mouth we had two mouths. What could have happened? If you had just, when it comes to ears, there's not having balance in two sides of the body. These are just, all you have to do is just when you're taking a biology class, when you study, imagine this is not just adaptation of humanity to all the best form of the needs, is more than to that. There is a design, there's a complicated designer behind this. And of course the soul. Of course the soul. When you see people with mental health issue, they need help. Try to help them as much as you can. But at the same time, I don't have that. I have to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for not having to deal with that. And that's a blessing that we take for granted. Not that we look at their misery and we appreciate our own health, but just as a good reminder that what the chance of me suffering from a lot of these issues is very probable, it is very possible. So Allah created us in the best of His statures. If we appreciate and if we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we use this body, قَوِّ عَلَى خِدْمَتِكَ جَوَارِحِ, if we use this body and these organs for the sake of Allah, then we find that value and that balance. If we use it for any other cause, then we will lose it. We'll go to the lowest of the low. And lastly, we finished that the people who are go toward Allah, who do Iman and Amal al-Salih, and I mentioned we need examples to see how to have Iman and righteous deed balance in our lives, to appreciate personalities, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, companions of the Prophet, Hazrat Khadija salamullah alayha, and people who lived a life of Iman, lived a life of what we consider to be Salihin, the righteous people. May Allah give us that tawfiq to learn from the life of the Prophet, the life of the awliya Allah. And inshallah, the more and more we imagine their life, those stories help us. Those stories help us. The more and more we become familiar with the stories of Hazrat Khadija, it helps us to understand that it is easier to give a bit more to charity. If I remember that Hazrat Khadija gave everything she had, it will not be that difficult for me to give $15 for Zakat al-Fitr at the end of the month, try to negotiate somehow to get away from it. Not that anybody does, I'm not accusing anyone, but sometimes temptation comes, right? Temptation comes. What's the point? You help people and they don't say thank you. Remember Hazrat Khadija, all she did, how many thank you she got? How many thank you she got? A lot of other people, they did a lot for the sake of Allah and people, but they did not get a thank you in return. This is an example we need to learn. The next time when I give a cup of tea to somebody in Ramadan and they don't say thank you so much with a smile, I don't say, tomorrow night I'm not going to pass anything. These people, they're just careless and they're selfish. Because you're supposed to do it for the sake of Allah and myself, to be kind. Even if other people don't see it, I should not do it for that cause. And it's easy to say, but it's very difficult to digest. That if when you do something nice, usually there's an expectation. There's always expectation. But when you look at awliya Allah, they learned that their expectations only from Allah. I expect from Allah to compensate. As we say in Surah Insan, right? إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. If we feed poor people, if we do any kind of philanthropy, volunteer work, we do it for the sake of Allah. We don't expect appreciation. We don't expect reward from people. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.